And in our main segment today here on Mastering Dungeons, as promised, we are here to talk about D&D Encounters and organized play with the man himself, Chris Tulach. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, we are very excited to talk to you about all of those things, organized play at Wizards and encounters and all that stuff. But we love to ask our guests, first and foremost, how did you get into gaming? What's your gaming history? And then what was your path through the industry to lead you into your current position?
Well, I'll try to keep it as short as I can because I can be really, really long-winded and it's a long story. But to kind of sum it up, right? I started playing D&D in 1983, around Christmas time. During that holiday season, I got the red box for Christmas. I didn't know anyone else who played D&D. My parents knew that I was interested in fantasy because I had read The Hobbit earlier that year, and also the D&D cartoon was big, right? So they knew that I was into that. So they got me the gift, best gift I ever got, right? And I had to learn how to do it all myself, right? I had to learn how to dungeon master, and then I ran my first games days after I got it. We were on winter break, and I was 10, right? And so myself, my brother, and my two cousins who were about the same age as me and my brother. So the four of us just started playing, right? I taught them how to play, and then we just started playing ourselves. So that was where I started. That was like that's what kind of got me in the door. It was that awesome red box with the Larry Elmore art on it. And then from there, I played a lot of other RPGs too, but D&D was always my first love. I always played a lot of D&D. We got into tons of other things too. And as time progressed, as I got to be a teenager, second edition AD&D was coming out, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be my game. I'm going to be like all in on this one, right? I just, I was 16 when second edition came out, so I had a job, right? I had a little bit of money, right? And I'm like, okay, I can afford. This is going to be the hobby that I'm going to really go in on, right? And I started running games at Gen Con right away. I actually went to Gen Con in 87 was my first Gen Con. So I was 14 when I went to my first Gen Con. But like when I was 16, that first year, I ran games at Gen Con. So just stuff I had made,
That's
right?
Amazing.
And then the next year I joined the RPGA at 17 and got really hooked into organized play. And from there, organized play had its claws in me for basically the rest of my life, right? Because that's what I'm doing now. So yeah, I spent all in the 90s, really involved in organized play, involved in the local scene in Wisconsin and the Midwest. Went to lots of conventions. Was involved in pretty much every living campaign that ever existed in some way, right? Whether it was a player, dungeon master, organizer, whatever it is. And by the time we hit the late 90s, I was already writing content. I started my first adventure for organized play that I had published was for for Living Death, the Mask of the Red Death campaign in 1999. I think it got published, 98 or 99. I can't remember. Time's fuzzy sometimes. But yeah, and then from there, I got brought on in 1999 by Eric Mona to be one of the inaugural class of the Living Greyhawk Triad people, right? And so I was one of the Living Greyhawk Triad people. I was one of the first people to do that. My triad, also had Jason Bullman in it, right? So
who goes on to be at Paizo, and
right. I mean, we had a lot of people at that time that went on to have other careers in role playing games, which is great. I got really big into organizing Living Greyhawk and being a part of the Living Greyhawk community and being a leader in that community, and kind of worked my way up through the steps there. They had like meta regional coordinators and all this other stuff. And then eventually I was on what they called the Circle back then, which was the group of people that were contracted directly by Wizards to kind of oversee the campaign on a global basis. And then from there, I got hired on at Wizards of the Coast in 2006. So to come in and I was originally the RPGA content manager. So I came in to do that. And that was mostly me working with a lot of our external organizers and content developers to basically as an editor in chief for a lot of the content that would come through, right? I did that for a little while, and then we were hitting the end of the third edition era at that time, so I kind of closed out that era and started working already on what fourth edition would be like in terms of organized play programs, and did the entirety of the fourth edition organized play tenure, and then started the fifth edition organized play programs with Adventures League, right? And then in 2015, I had an opportunity to move over to Magic for a little while, so I decided to go over to Magic. It was a decision that I don't regret. I loved doing it. It gave me a lot of perspective. But Magic needed someone to come in and work on some of their play programs and things like that. So I went over and did that, and then did some event management there. Then wound back up working on D&D events right around the time COVID hit. So that was really fun. And then over the last couple of years, what has happened is in 2024, I talked to folks at work and said, listen, I really want to do organized play full time, because we didn't, at that point, I was doing some organized play stuff, but it was really not a huge priority coming, like during the pandemic and out of the pandemic, it wasn't as big of a priority, right? And I said, there's lots of opportunity here. I would like to do this. They said they agreed, and I started to move off of event management and back into organized play again. And then now really it's only been, I've been able to kind of really dig my heels in and work on what we're going to talk about today. In the last, 6 to 9 months has really been the time that I've been really digging in. And it's been great to kind of come back and work on organized play full time. It's just awesome, and I love it. I've never not loved it. I've never not been a part of either a part of the community or at least engaged with it. Even when I was on Magic, I was still keeping tabs on things, right? What was going on with Adventures League, et cetera, even though it wasn't mine to run for that brief window of time. So,
and I love the history of the RPGA and organized play. And in looking at that, there have been a number of real heroes of leading the RPGA for a number of years, but nobody has been around remotely as many years as you. Even if we take out the time you were at Magic, it's something like 13 years. Like, how?
It's coming up on 15, actually, I think, because
you've got to be
9 years and then a 5-year break. Well, I get 13, 15, 13, whatever. It's some number of years that basically puts it at the age of consent or better.
To last that long in any job or at any company is an achievement. To last that long at Wizards of the Coast, having seen the layoffs over the years and so on, is an accomplishment that very, very few people can claim.
Yeah.
And so, hats off to you for all that you've done, not just for organized play, D&D, but also on the event side of things, on the Magic side of things. But let's jump into organized play, because that's what Teos and I are rabidly waiting to discuss, because that's where we got our starts as well.
Yeah.
And so
I was with you in a lot of those early days, right? And that was great.
I remember you getting that position at Wizards and thinking, Chris has made it. Right. Yeah. Chris has reached the big time. Chris has gone to that storied mountaintop, and he's now at Wizards of the Coast. And then, it's like, okay, good luck. We'll see how it goes. What do you see as the role of organized play, specifically in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, what it means to the brand, what it means to the game, what it means to everything about D&D?
Yeah. So organized play, I see it as it is an important part of the mission of bringing people together through their shared love of games, right? And organized play serves as a really, really useful connecting point for people, right? That don't have things like a regular home group or don't have that social network built up to find people to play with. It also serves as a way for you to continue to engage. Maybe you're in a play group and you're really deep, right? And the rest of your group is like, yeah, we meet once a month and it's fun, right? And that's what we do. But you're like, I want more D&D in my life, right? Organized play can give you that, right? Because you can get that play more frequently if you want it, right? You can go out there and find those people that want to engage. So I look at organized play as being a really critical component of kind of getting people into the door and then deepening their engagement with D&D and their communities, right? Making lifelong friends, et cetera. I almost everybody that I am really good friends with, I met through organized play, right? It's just a great place for you to really get to know your community and feel like you're a part of something bigger. So that's sort of where I see it. And D&D specifically, I think, is just well primed for it because, again, it's the ubiquitous tabletop role-playing game, right? Mm-hmm. It makes it easier to find a game of D&D than any other TTRPG in general, right? Like especially in North America, right? So organized play just helps to broaden that reach, right? And make it so that there are lots of ways that you can kind of jump in and be involved.
Over the years, how important has it been for Wizards to measure like a financial direct benefit versus that knowledge of, because you know me, I'm a huge fan of this. I believe in it. I don't even need to see numbers.
Right.
I know what it does. I see it, year after year on the ground floor. But, executives might say, show me is that important? Is that a thing that has come up over the years? Is it a thing that's important now?
Yeah. So it, over the many years, that I've been at Wizards, it does come up here and there. But I think the focus is more on engagement and deepening the communities, deepening their relationship with the game, right? And I think there's an intrinsic value in that, right? And then the extrinsic value is something like, well, how does this impact, how does this impact like sales, right? I will say that, we certainly have insights that tell us that, people that play organized play, right? They in general are just more deeply engaged than other players. Right. And they are, and more deeply engaged players tend to spend more money. Right.
Yeah.
So there's that. Right. But I think, especially in our current environment, right, where Danny Youb has come in and we really have a mission to, reconnect with those foundational elements that make people excited to be part of D&D, right, part of Dungeons and Dragons and the community. And the thing that I found really inspiring about that was that, we were all in on organized play once we started talking, right? Because it was more about, this is important for people's relationship with the game more than it is about the dollars, right? Mm-hmm. It's really important to the community that this exists and that there's ways for you to find players and there's ways for you to connect and there's ways for you to get games whenever you want. So that was really heartening to me because, that's always sort of what I've led with, right? Mm-hmm. Is like, listen, the dollars will come, right? You don't focus on the dollars, you focus on the heart, right? Which is let's get people playing together, enjoying the games together, being part of a shared experience, right? That's what's really important. And I'm glad to see that, that approach has been really resonating with the people at the top now. So,
yeah,
cool.
Great.
When we talk about organized play, during the Living Greyhawk era, everyone just equated Living Greyhawk with organized play. If you talked about Wizards of the Coast organized play, 99% of people were like, oh, you mean Living Greyhawk. Mm-hmm. But there are many other types of organized play. There are many different avenues that a company like Wizards might take, including games at conventions, including games at stores, including, things that are put up on a website that everyone might have access to. And the one tendril that Teos and I have been beating the drum for since it came out was D&D Encounters, because we both saw how powerful D&D Encounters was. Mm-hmm. Teos, as he traveled across the country, me as I lived in this rural area where it was the only place where we could find people playing D&D. Mm-hmm. And you have since announced the return of D&D Encounters in 2026. So go back and talk about what made the original D&D Encounters such a success, why it ended, and then why it's being brought back.
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah. So I love that program. A quick little story is about that program is story time is in 2009 they came to me and asked, like, hey, we really need a program that is built around store play, and we need you to work on that, right? And I'm like, great, I'll get something together. About 4 or 5 weeks later, I had a proposal and a presentation, went and presented it, and it did not go over really well. So, my first attempt was kind of a failure, right? And but from that, I was told to go back to the drawing board, and I really started to dig into some other things. Then I looked at it from a different angle, and the angle that I looked at it from was this: when I first was pitching, I was just thinking, well, how do I get the kind of people that I know that love organized play to participate in the store? And that was not the right approach. The right approach was, how do I get the audience that is coming into the store to engage, right? Mm-hmm. And how do I meet people where they are, right? Mm-hmm. Not try to pull people from where they want to be into a space maybe that they're not as comfortable with, right? Because we know that there's lots of barriers for play, right? And one of the barriers for play is I don't know anyone, right? This, I don't know what to do, right? Those are barriers, right? So as I went back to the drawing board and started building this out, what I did is I really spent some time like doing, some research that I had available to me, and looked at like the way that people engage with games, especially tabletop games at the time. And what I found was a trend that people were spending less and less time over the years, in a single session of gaming than they had previously, right? So it was, back when I was younger, right, in the 80s and 90s, right, we would think nothing of spending 4 to 8 hours on a single session, right? And I know you guys are shaking your heads because you know exactly what I'm talking about. We would do that, right? We would just do that naturally, right? Our convention slot models, right, were all based on 4 hours of gaming, thinking that that's a pretty typical session, right? Wasn't the case by the time I was working on D&D Encounters, right? By the time I was building that program, what I realized is that while people might spend the same amount of time sitting down to play games, a lot of people, especially board gamers, weren't playing a 4-hour board game. What they would do is they'd have a 4-hour board game session. They play an icebreaker game, then they play an hour game, then they play like a 2-hour game, right? And it's like, okay, great. That they wanted to have more bite-sized pieces of content to play, because that's just the way we're starting to get rewired, right? To be a little bit less dedicated to a long format session of the same thing, right? We want to have more things packed within that time. So then it became, well, okay, if we're going to do a shorter, more bite-sized version of D&D, what's the kind of the smallest unit of D&D play that I think is satisfying? And that became like, okay, like a really like media encounter is probably about the most satisfying thing you can get, right? Something that makes it worthwhile for you to come out, right, of your house or whatever, or, after school or work, and go into a store and play for an hour or two, right, and then head home, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where D&D Encounters really was born. Once I had that, then the rest sort of fell into place pretty naturally, right? Which was, well, you'll build a big adventure one encounter at a time, right? And the early iterations of D&D Encounters, actually pretty much for the most part for the whole program, had about 12 to 15 weeks of encounters to build toward an adventure, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you play those one encounter at a time, take about 3 or 4 months to finish it, right? And then we would immediately jump into the next one. So that's the program. That's how it existed. And the initial reception was really, really positive. Stores loved the program, right? I personally ran for the first year, the first 3 seasons or so, 3 or 4 seasons. I personally went and organized and ran it at a local shop that no longer exists, but did exist then. And the numbers were just huge. We were in a mall, and I had 50 players show up like the first night. I was like, okay.
Wow.
I'm like trying to grab new DMs because I'm like, I had like me and like 4 other DMs, right? Thinking, okay, this would be enough. And we're running like 8-person tables and just trying to manage it all. And then, quickly, like we started spreading out into the mall food court, right? Because we couldn't, the gaming space in there couldn't contain everybody. So it was great. It was really great to see the success of the program. And and that's sort of how the program worked, right? And that program existed, like you said, till about 2014, till about the launch of 5th edition.
Mm-hmm.
Why did it end? D&D Encounters ended because we shifted strategy on what we were going to do with D&D in the beginning of the 5th edition era. And so some things did have to get deprioritized. And one of those things was in-store play, right? So that program then was, lost its funding. So we no longer were able to continue. It did not end because it was in any way like doing poorly or having like retailers were giving us feedback that it was not a good program or, what have you, right? It ended simply because the priorities of the business shifted at the time, right? And I think the things that, the program was very successful. And I think the reason why it was successful is because it did engage people on a weekly basis. We were very clear about, hey, let's get everybody playing on Wednesday nights, right? We did a lot of things to kind of create a big global community around D&D Encounters, right? Like at the time, Twitter, back in the days of Twitter being where it was, right? It was great, right? We had the Twitter buffs going, right? So on Tuesdays, we'd send out, the D&D channel would send out a message saying, here's your bonus for tomorrow night, right? Don't forget to play, right? So it was really fun. It was great. It was a great way to engage people and get them into the store and playing. And in terms of what we want to do differently, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I'll add one quick thing that also is easy to forget in all of the successes that Encounters had. One of the things that helped a lot of players do was transition to 5th edition. Right, yes. Because as there was that time of the D&D Next taking place and the playtest and all of that, these adventures were released supporting various ways to play, and even sort of at one point saying like you can play 3E with this. So if you're still playing that game and you want to come in and be part of our group, you can join our community too. It was really clever, and I think is one of the reasons so many people were able to transition towards 5th edition smoothly.
Yeah, I think so too. You just being able to kind of get familiarity with the game, right? When you had nothing to start with, right, is really important. The thing I thought was really neat is the legacy of that program, even when it didn't exist anymore, still lives on, right? Not only in the players and those communities that have been created in those stores, but also like in the programming the stores offer. I still see a lot of stores that offer Wednesday night D&D, and they do that because they started doing that during the Encounters era. And that's just the night they do D&D now, right? Yeah. And so it's just really awesome to see that. Whenever I see that, I smile because I know that's a store that ran D&D Encounters like that.
Yeah.
Right.
A new store just opened not too far from here, and that's exactly what they do. Wednesday nights, D&D night.
It got to a level, because we did it for a number of years. It got to a level where it had some sort of cultural relevance, especially in like the US and Canada, right? Like, North America, where it was like, okay, that's just, we know that store programs for D&D are on Wednesdays, just like Friday Night Magic's on Fridays, right? And that was the idea, right? That was the whole big idea there, is like, let's get that, let's form that habit, right? That ritual of coming in on Wednesdays, right?
Right. So we'll talk about Yeah, we'll talk about the other types of organized play in a bit, but we want to focus on the new version of D&D Encounters first, and tell us kind of what can we expect for somebody who maybe doesn't know anything about D&D Encounters. What's the program feel like, and if someone does know, what are the differences?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what D&D Encounters it is a program that is designed to connect you with whatever the newest, most fun thing is that we're working on, right? What we call a tentpole, or a major product release, right? Connect you with that, right? Get you in and playing, and if you've never played D&D before, it's going to be accessible enough for you to jump in. If you've played D&D a lot, it should still be really appealing to you, because it's like your first chance to kick the tires on something new, right? And hey, maybe I'll try something different than what I'm doing in my home game. So that's sort of what the program is, on like a very high level. The new program is being built to be optimized for stores, but not exclusive for stores this time. There are things that are exclusive for stores. There are kits that'll be exclusive to the stores. And I would say that like the most premium experience version of the program is playing in a store, right? We still want to focus on that, because our game shops are the lifeblood of what makes D&D awesome, right? And so we really wanted to come back and say, listen, we're hearing you. We know that this is something you want, right? And we're here to bring it back and make it better than ever. So there's that. So what you can expect if you're coming into the program, right? If you're going to jump in and try it out during our first season or this year anytime, is we will have a celebration event. And this is sort of taking some of the idea of what we've had in the past with some of our game days and things like that, where we have these one-off events, right? That bring people together, right? Because there's something really exciting happening, and let's all go celebrate, right? And let's go all gather together to play it. So we'll have a celebration event to kick things off. The celebration event kind of takes a cue from things that we've done, like in other organized play spaces, what we call for Adventures League, we call them epics, we call them specials, interactives, whatever you want to call them, over the long history of organized play. But having some of those light elements of that sprinkled in, which is the idea that when you come to the celebration event, you're excited to kind of sit down and play your first game. And you're going to play in a multi-table experience, right? Where there's going to be a shared goal, and there might be a little bit of interactivity between the tables too as well, right? To kind of really make it feel like this is something you want to play together in a larger space than just, a single group at home, right? So that's the idea there. And then from the celebration event, you go into weekly play. And the weekly play is formatted very similarly to the way that we formatted the old D&D Encounters program, where there's one robust kind of encounter every week, right? It takes about 2 hours to play it max, right? And you're going to do that over the course of the next 4 weeks, so the next month or so. And then we'll start the cycle again when the next season pops in. So, okay.
And you kind of alluded to something that has been a question for me, which is how the seasons sort of work. And share what you can, don't share what you can't say. But the seasonal map, which we talked about on a previous show, I think it was last week we covered this.
Yeah.
It sort of like, if we look at the graphic, it's like the season starts and then the book comes towards the end. So is that where at D&D Encounters we might be playing the season before the book's in our hands? Is that the idea?
No. So the thing is, organized play firmly sits at that point where, the book is out.
Okay.
It's launched, and then we're gonna engage past that. And the reason why that is because there's just a lot of challenges in getting that material out to people early enough, right? So during the play preview part of the season, we'll have other ways for you to engage with it and get hyped, right? So during the preview part, rather, we're not going to do a full pure play preview. We might do some of those limited things like at conventions. Sometimes we do that stuff, right? Where we'll have a show that'll happen to fall at a really good calendar point, and we'll be like, oh, let's do a play preview. We did this with the Forgotten Realms at Gen Con last year, et cetera, right? So we might still do some of that, but that'll be more very focused and very specific, right? In terms of broad engagement, we are focused. Organized play and the play programs that I'm working on, especially the ones that touch the store, are focused mostly around that time of launch into the first few weeks after launch, right? And that is due to a couple of reasons. One I just mentioned, which is there's all these content questions about how do we make that all happen? Like how could you get access to the book content right before the book's out, right? There's lots of questions on that, right? We're still working on getting the book developed, right? So it's like, how do we make that happen?
Okay. And so am I hearing then that the content that we would play, the adventures that we would have for D&D Encounters would be a portion of the actual product, or are they based off of it?
So what we're doing right now is we are creating new content for the first couple of seasons, right? So for the first couple of seasons, Season of Horror and Season of Magic, you're going to see new content that's created, much like we did for the past D&D Encounters program. Yeah. So the difference between that program and this one, there's two big differences, really. Number one is the past program had little relationship to the actual products that were being sold at the time in the stores. It was just sort of like sometimes the seasons worked out that way and sometimes they didn't, right? So I mean, the first season was like an Undermountain season, right?
Dark Sun did line up.
It had nothing to do with the products that were out right then, right? And and then the second thing is that the seasons are going to be, they're not going to last 3 or 4 months. You're not going to feel like, I'm locked into, I got to do this all for this long, right? And we're going to make them shorter because what we found is in terms of engagement that about a month is great. After about a month, then people really start to drop off and they want to do other things or they want to engage in different ways, right? So those are some of the ways that we're doing it. But yeah, in terms of the other main reason why to do it during launch and right after launch is because, again, if you think about this as the premium experiences in the store, well, what the stores need is they need people to come in and get engaged when the product is on the shelf, when they can put a book in their hands and say, here, the thing that you're excited about, you can buy it today, right? And so being able to do that, right, actualize that, right, is really important. And so so that's just, again, helps out the stores, right, to have it be aligned with when the product's actually releasing on the store shelves. It also means that you can you don't have to necessarily hold back as much, right? You don't have to be as careful about what you're talking about in the content, how you're working with that content, right? What can we put in the adventure, right? Is it okay if we say these things right now, right? Well, what's the preview plan look like, right? Are we talking about this thing? We don't have to worry about any of that once we get into a launch state. So.
Okay, I want to ask a clarifying question. You had mentioned that Encounters is built for stores, but you can play it at places other than stores. Yeah. So what does that look like if you can get to that?
That's a great question. So what it looks like is we're going to make the adventure content available on D&D Beyond, right? So anyone can get access to the content. And one of the things that I've been very clear about as I've been designing our programs is while we may have experiences that are kind of sequestered behind a different type of venue or channel, things that are this experience is really optimized for a store. This experience is optimized for that. In terms of the actual play content, new play content should not be locked behind a channel so that no one else can access it, right? The idea is we want to get that out, right? Have everybody be able to engage with it because there are people that don't have stores, right, and can't get access to it. I want them to participate, right? I want them to feel that they can play and be a part of it too, right? And so, so we're going to have the content available on DDB. We're still working out the way that you access it. I don't really want to go too much into detail yet, but it'll be either it'll be inexpensive at the very least, right, to get that content. And then our stores will get access to that content in a variety of different ways. We've already let our stores know that we are going to provide that adventure content to them to distribute to their dungeon masters via DDB access codes for free, via PDF for free, and via printed adventures for free.
PDF.
So no matter how you want to prep, right, or what
I love it.
You get it all.
No, I love that, because there have been some really nice programs in the past where the D&D Beyond content presents a challenge to print things out for DMs to run at the table. So having that PDF is fantastic. Thank you, Wizards, for that. Thank you, Chris. Love it.
Yep. That was, I had a big conversation with Brian Perry, who we had on last week, and he said we should meet them where they're at. And I'm like, great. I'm really happy about that. So so we're gonna do it, however you want. And I can see that, like, a lot of DMs for this program probably will be like, okay, well, the store will probably send me the PDF right away, and I'll kind of start prepping on the PDF, right? That's where I'll start a couple weeks before I'm supposed to, right, run it. And then, the week of launch, right, their DDB access will open up, which might allow them to, bring those tools to the table, right, and do some additional prep work where it's like, okay, cool, I'm going to have an iPad with the stat blocks on it, right, or whatever I need to do, right, get that ready to go, and then they get to the show, or get to the store, right, and there, lo and behold, here's a printed adventure for you. So if you like running it from print, you can just flip through and run from print, right? Super. And plus, I think that's also really cool because it's like a memento too, right? DMs will want to keep those things and maybe rerun them for home groups down the road, right? So, that's what we're doing with the program. I'm really excited that we're going to be able to do that. That was a huge ask that stores had in terms of like accessibility and how do we get this stuff. And I'm glad we were able to meet them where they want us to be, right? Which is giving them however you want it, you can have it, right?
Awesome. And you worked closely with stores to get all of this information, right? So I work on, so my role as a global play manager and organized play person is I work more on the programmatic and content side of the house, right? I do work with our awesome trade marketing team and our WPN team. And the WPN is the Wizards Play Network, and what that is it's our basically core hobby store network of stores that kind of are involved with us in some way, right? And they get lots of benefits for being a part of our network. Some, like a lot of those benefits historically have been Magic related, but during the 4th edition era, with D&D Encounters, we had a lot of benefits there, and we're bringing those back, right? And so the stores are, I work with the team, the internal teams here to really talk about, like what the stores need, talk to retailers one-on-one. I was at Gamma, presented at Gamma, the organized play plan. It was really great. It was a great room. The room energy was awesome for all the things D&D, but I was really happy to have a number of retailers come up afterwards and say how excited they were that D&D Encounters was coming back. So, I do work with them all the time.
Great. And, we talked about seasonality a little bit before, where there are these seasons now for D&D on the roadmap. You're linking into those seasons, and you said you sort of start when the book comes out. So if I look at that map, and the D&D Encounters season would start towards the end of the season when the adventure comes out, what is happening in organized play before that? Are other things being played at the store, or is it kind of a time when you're focusing on other types of organized play experience that aren't store-based? How's that work?
Yeah. Well, I think the second thing that you mentioned is probably a little bit closer to the reality, which is that during like a preview period, right, when the product is not out yet, but we're talking about it a lot, right? Pre-order it, check it out, right? There's all this information that's cool. That's where, I focus on things like, hey, do we have a convention that we want to do a play preview at, so that people that are at those conventions, which are typically tastemakers for their home groups, right, can learn about the product and like take that back and be excited, right, and tell everybody this is going to be awesome, right? So I usually work on those kinds of things during that time. We will, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it. We have another organized play program that we're developing. And of course, we have Adventures League that's still ongoing. And, what I would say there is during these gaps, right, we have gap fillers, right? And the gap fillers are these other programs, right, that will exist, right, and that you can use to continue your momentum, week over week until we get to the next season. even if you want to, you can just rerun the seasonal content, right? Until you get to the next season. But the focus is primarily for D&D Encounters. The focus is around the launch, right? And around that early, like that first month of the product's life, right? And getting people to engage there. So I like to think of D&D Encounters. We'll talk a little bit about Legends of Greyhawk in a minute, but I like to think of D&D Encounters is the program for you if you are excited about the new release and you want to play with stuff from the new release right now.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's what this program will do for you. It'll be really exciting for you there. So.
Okay. And you talked about the Wizards Play Network and some changes there. I put the full info as I was able to collate it into our show notes for folks who really want to dig into the details. But at the highest level, you've made a number of changes, like you mentioned, like in the 4th edition days, where the stores are incentivized to running D&D. And do you want to talk about that a bit and anything you want to share specifically about those changes?
I've been working closely with the team that's building out the new WPN benefits, which now that information is out in the world. At Gamma this year, we announced it all. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making sure that if you are a retailer, so if you're a retailer listening to this, right, if you're a retailer, right, we want you to have a path to achieve like the highest levels of support from Wizards through Dungeons and Dragons, right? So previously that would only been possible through Magic, right? And now it will be possible to do that through D&D as well, right? And so some things that we're kind of bringing back there or kind of developing and expanding are obviously we will have play kits available for D&D Encounters. That'll be a benefit. I think that benefit starts at like the 2nd tier of the program.
What does a kit look like? Like what's in it? What am I getting for the store for the DM?
So for a kit, you're going to get a number of physical things in the kit. The kit that I'm working on is what I would call a play kit, right? So the kit is focused around play. It's not focused around marketing or promotion as much. We will have other resources available for you to if you're a retailer to help with marketing and promotion of both the product, right, that is going to be the big highlight, right, and then also the play programs like D&D Encounters will have things that you can use in store,
like a banner or a window cling.
We'll have some stuff through the normally, like there's a retailer portal. You can order things from the retailer portal. You can use credits to get stuff for free, right? That's how you would get those. The play kits will be free. We're going to have to limit the number we're going to make at first, and then we're going to kind of adjust as we see what the demand is and how we go with it. But the play kit will be available both physically with a limited number of kits and then digitally too. So if you're a store that comes in a little bit late and you're like, I missed the cutoff, I don't get the physical kit, you could still at least run the whole play program, right? Everything will be available to you digitally. Like you can do the adventures and all that. The play kit, the physical play kit, will contain the printed adventures. It'll contain map for the celebration event, right? For the first that first big adventure, it'll contain a map for that. And it'll contain player and DM rewards, and we're going to evolve those. I think what you're going to see in the first season, the Season of Horror, is going to be different than what you're going to see in Season of Magic, for example. And we already have some plans for some other stuff down the road that just need a little bit more development time, right? And and longer runways than we had to deliver it right away in the first season. And then you'll organizer instructions, and you might see some other play aids included in the kit. Kit's going to be very focused on like, this is the stuff you need to play, right? And then the other stuff will be kind of developed around marketing and advertisement. So
that's fantastic. Love it.
Yeah. Great. So let's dig into some of the other programs.
Sure.
We've mentioned Adventures League. So could you just give us an update? What's this current state of Adventures League?
Yeah. So Adventures League's current state isn't much different than it was in the last 2-3 years or so, right? So in 2022, what we did is we divested like the content creation side of Adventures League entirely to the community, right? So community created content is what Adventures League is all about, right? And so all the adventures for Adventures League can be found on DM's Guild, right? The community guidelines are always available through what we call the Dungeon Craft program. So you can create your own adventures and make them Adventures League compatible. that is still existing. That's still going on. We're not taking any of that away. Adventurers League is still being supported in terms of like community support and in terms of rule support. We're still supporting that program. Adventurers League is what I like to call a legacy 5th edition program. What that means is that it uses everything from the beginning of 2014 5th edition D&D to now, right? So it will always consider all the content that is existing from that point forward. Mm-hmm. It's a play format. The play format starts in 2014 and continues on. Our other programs that we're actively developing right now that aren't yet in the world, but will be hopefully very soon, are 5.5 forward, right? So they're going to be using the stuff that started coming out in 2024 forward, right? And so that's sort of one of the big delineations between the two, right? We're not going to take away anything that you've already, experienced with Adventurers League. We're not going to change, we're not going to say, oh, well, you can only play 5.5 forward with Adventurers League. That's not the intention, because it's really disruptive to do that. There's no reason to change it. There are lots of communities that are having a lot of success with Adventurers League and love running it. And so we don't really want to upset that whole community and get that, there's no reason to make that change, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, these programs can coexist, right? Yeah. And they should, right? Because some people will want to have, the ability to play their subclass that hasn't been updated in 5.5 yet, right? And will want to have an access a library that spans all the way back to like Tyranny of Dragons, right?
Sure.
So I think that's really important for people to be able to have that.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. So then let's talk Legends of Greyhawk.
Yeah.
That program is in its first year, give or take.
Yeah.
What is Wizards of the Coast's role in this campaign?
Oh, okay. So I thought there was more. You were kind of like pausing, and I was like, okay, what else is he going to say?
And please say it in rhyming pentameter. So.
Oh yes, yeah. Okay, great. Do I have to use like Shakespearean English or something?
Preferably.
So preferably.
Forsooth.
Forsooth, we have come. But anyway, Adventures League, or not Adventures League. We're talking about Legends of Greyhawk now. Legends of Greyhawk. We are still in at the very tail end of what I would call our beta period, right? And so our beta period is that we started this out as a convention first, like experiment, right, to see how things would go. And we debuted the beta of Legends of Greyhawk at MagicCon Chicago about a year ago, about 13 months ago. So it was February 2025. And it went really well, right? I mean, people loved it. They had a great time, right? It was like, okay, clearly we're moving in the right direction. Let's keep going, right? Let's keep chugging along. And so over the course of last year, then what we decided to do is bring in a few organizer partners to basically be the content developers for this program, the publishers for the content for this program. So we brought in 3 organizer partners that Wizards of the Coast has utilized at different shows over the years, right? That we know that they have the experience to and resources to bring people in, the network there. Right. And so Baldman Games, Game Conclave, and West Coast Adventurers Guild, right? Those are our 3 organizer partners, right, that will be creating content for Legends of Greyhawk. So if you think about it, it's sort of like almost like it's like a third party sort of publishing kind of arrangement in terms of the adventure content. The program management, right? The way the program works, like the rules of the program, how people engage with it, that's all on Wizards' side, right? So we kind of deal with the overall strategy around the program, but then we leave it up to our organizer partners and every other organizer out there to deal with all like the execution on their local levels. So, that's sort of how the program is being developed. That program is, like I mentioned before, it is 5.5 forward. Right. And that program will use content from the new core rule books. Plus, when we have new releases, we will consider what's in the new releases, and some subset of that will also be integrated into Legends of Greyhawk as well.
And I assume the idea is to kind of keep a Greyhawk feel, and so to keep that focus.
We've made some decisions early, and again, we're also, everything's evolving, right? Like this program hasn't even really, like, we haven't ripped the beta sticker off of it yet, right? But everything's evolving. But what we have started off with in terms of like how people are able to access the rules for different expansion products that we put out, right? Player options and such, is that for Legends of Greyhawk, we're kind of starting off with a much more measured approach, right? Where we're saying, well, let's look at what we think would be reasonable to consider within the milieu of the world of Greyhawk, right? Rather than just saying everything's available, right? We're trying to kind of build it that way, right? To start, knowing that obviously community sentiment is important to us. If people really, really want something, we'll consider it. And the other thing, knowing that this is not an official campaign, right? It's not like this is the official canonical Greyhawk. This is just like anybody else's awesome Greyhawk campaign. It's just on a big global level. This is an organized play Greyhawk campaign that exists, right? And it will have its own continuity, its own timelines, its own things that go on, right? If we blow up something in this campaign, it doesn't mean it's blown up for everyone. It means it's blown up in that campaign,
sure,
right? And that's how we should always think about D&D anyway, really, like, because everything is ours to create and destroy as we wish, right? At the whims of the players and DMs that participate in the game. So that's what's going to happen. Is we're gonna be looking at that. A lot of people, really are focused on player options because those are really important. And so we're, like, for example, I'll give a good example. Eberron Forge of the Artificer came out, and we didn't immediately say all of the stuff is good. But what we had to do is we had to say, listen, we had to have some of these things that have to be good, right? Because people are going to want to play the Artificer, right? And so what we did is we looked at the subclasses and we said, okay, well, what ones make the most sense in Greyhawk? And it came down to the Alchemist and the Cartographer. Made a lot of sense, right? They're like, okay, these make a lot of sense, right? They work. The Artillerist and the Armorer, and there's another one I think that starts with an A. I can't remember the name of it. Those did not feel quite as Greyhawky in their, because Greyhawk is sort of the milieu of Greyhawk is more of a low magic world, right? It doesn't really have the sort of technological advancements that a world like the Forgotten Realms or Eberron have. So so you have to kind of think about it in that context. But at the same time, you also want to balance that with people are going to want to play a new class, right? Sure. So thankfully, the way we're building our products out is we're building our products so that all of our products kind of have those kinds of things, where it's like, whatever kind of campaign you're going to play, you'll probably find something from our products that you can pull into that campaign, right? And that's okay. Well, what is that for Greyhawk, right? What does that mean? So,
yeah. And at Winter Fantasy, I saw both of those subclasses that were allowed at my tables.
Oh, cool!
Already,
hopefully they played really well. So,
the
Cartographer is the one I'm most interested in playing. I haven't played a Cartographer yet, but it looks really exciting. I want to play it.
It's a wild concept. I dig it.
That's cool. Yeah.
So how is the idea then that, like, if someone's looking for organized play, like, how would you describe what their options are, and what do you think of as sort of the selection process that happens in people's brains?
Yeah. So if you're looking for organized play, I would say, first of all, it comes down to what's your community look like, right? Like, where do you want to engage? Do you want to engage in a store? Do you want to play online? Do you want to play, at a community center? Like, where do you want to engage, right? So looking at what your community looks like. And if you don't have a community, right, we're here to help you with that, right? I would say if you're looking for a community, you should start off with either by looking at your local game shop, or Start Playing is a really great resource. We're partnering with them on some stuff, right? And we're really excited about that. So they're a great resource to hire a pro DM and get people together and play games. Virtual D&D weekends are another option for you too, if you're looking for people online to play with, and that's run every month by Baldman Games. So first off, start with your community, right? And then once you figure it out, like, okay, well, this is the communities that I have access to, right? Like, great, awesome. Is the thing that those communities want to do the thing you want to do, right? Like I said, we have officially we have basically 3 organized play programs, right? We have, or at least coming up, right? We have D&D Encounters, which will be starting up pretty soon. We have Legends of Greyhawk, which is in beta right now, so it's at conventions right now, but it will soon be coming to D&D Beyond, and and we will have we'll have ways for you to access that content there. And then Adventurers League, which is on DM's Guild, you can get all the content there. So if you're looking at more of like, hey, I just want to get a taste, and I just want to like play for a little bit, and then I don't want to be locked into anything for a long time, D&D Encounters is going to be your program, right? Because it's going to be great for the person that just kind of wants to move from one thing to another, in relative short order, doesn't want to get locked into a years long campaign, just wants to have fun with that, right? D&D Encounters is great for that. It's like, what's new? Great. I can get in. We'll provide pre-made characters too, so you don't even have to build your own character, right? It's like awesome. You can just jump in with both feet and have fun. If you want to drink a little more from the fire hose, then you have the 2 ongoing living style campaigns, right? Adventurers League and Legends of Greyhawk. Adventurers League actually is divided up into some sub programs, basically, which are effectively the campaign worlds, right? So then you have the Forgotten Realms, Eberron, etc., right? So most people, though, are playing Adventurers League in the Forgotten Realms just because it was the one we started with, and so that's got the most content available for it. But yeah, so those programs they're good for 2 things. One, I just want to I want to play D&D every week. I want to play organized play. I want to get deep, right? Great. That's awesome. The other thing is they're really good because you can take your character anywhere, which also means you can just stop playing for a little while because life got in the way, or you have other priorities, and you can just come back whenever you want, right? And jump right back in. So you don't have to feel like, oh, I have to like there's a moment in time where it happens and then it's not available to me anymore. That does not exist with these ongoing living campaigns. That content is still out there. You can still play it, right? There are always people looking to play it, right? So there's always new people coming in that haven't played that stuff. So it's easy to find a group to play that content with. So yeah, I think it depends on really what you want. I looking at it bigger term, right, or more like bigger picture rather. D&D Encounters is for the people that are excited about the new thing and want to just kind of like get a taste. And Legends of Greyhawk and Adventurers League are for people that want to have an ongoing experience, right, where they have a character, they keep a character, and they can keep playing whenever they want.
And so you're not going to try to say change future AL releases to be reflecting the seasons, or that
no,
Greyhawk will try to somehow touch on the seasons. It's more like you will make those decisions of whether to allow the seasonal content, the new adventure, the new source book.
Yeah, I'll dig into it a little bit with you because there is some points of clarification I think that will be interesting for the audience to hear. So Adventurers League is going to continue on because it's community created content, right? It's going to continue on as it has, right? When new releases come out, we'll publish a rules update, right? Letting you know like how that works within Adventurers League. Generally speaking, most of the options will probably be open. It depends on, again, the product. And then for Legends of Greyhawk, it's a little different because we're working with a smaller cohort of people to build the content, and I'm in close contact with them as we're developing. And we have a group of admins that help out with this. We are able to do a little bit more that is tied together with the seasons, right? So this year, what you're going to see is not going to look very tied to the seasons, because what we're going to be doing is when we start putting content out there, right, for anyone to get access to, that content will be stuff that has basically been during the beta period, right? Has been coming out over the last year or so, like it's been play tested at conventions, et cetera, right? So a lot of that content that is in development really isn't tied much to the seasonal model, because we already started building Legends of Greyhawk before we even came up with the seasonal model, right? Then when we move into 2027 beyond, you're going to start to see more and more alignment. It doesn't mean that there's going to be like a one-to-one, like it doesn't mean like, oh, we're having a season of horror, for example, and so everything has to be like perfectly lockstep, but you're going to see a lot more seasonal alignment, right? Where at least thematically, the adventures will express the seasons in a much better way, right? Especially the ones that are going to be released on D&D Beyond.
That's really fun. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we are coming to the end of our time here. So we want to give you a chance, Chris, to let people know if they want to follow you on social media, want to keep up with D&D Organized Play news, where should they go?
Yeah. Okay. Well, following me on social media is difficult because I don't really use social media much anymore. So I got off of social media. I think my last hurrah there was like 2022. So I still use Discord though. And for people that are fans of Mastering Dungeons and are not in the Discord for Mastering Dungeons, get in the Discord, right? Become a Patreon backer, right, of Mastering Dungeons and get in that Discord.
Amen.
And if you are in the Discord, I am in the Discord. For the Mastering Dungeons folks that are in there, you can always find me there. You can also find me lurking on Discord. I'm in the official D&D Discord, of course. So that is one place that I still engage sometimes with people. And then in terms of like how we're going to find out information about our programs, we will have article support on all of our programs on D&D Beyond, right? You'll be able to keep updated there, right? That's the best way probably to keep updated. We also do have Discord, events and things like that you can see. So going to the official D&D Discord and making sure that you're on that Discord, right, is really important. I think join that one too. You'll get lots of news and things there. There's also lots of channels for discussion or organized play there too as well. So I think those are probably the best places to follow. Official D&D website or D&D Beyond website rather, and then the Discord channels. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have not been this excited about organized play in quite a while. So thank you for all your hard work, Chris. And I can't wait to see all of the stuff that's about to drop on us.
Well, very kind of you to say. And I appreciate all the work that the two of you have done in the past, present, and future for organized play. The two of you have been in no small way contributors to the success of D&D organized play over the years. So it's pretty awesome to be talking with you on Mastering Dungeons about it.
You're a legend, Chris. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, you're a legend too, guys. Thanks. That was great.
Thanks, Chris. Bye.
Well, Chris is amazing to talk to. As we mentioned, organized play is so important to us. And Chris has been with organized play about as long as we have. Yeah. And so it's interesting to see his journey and then the journey of organized play through the years.
Yeah, he has seen so many things and been part of so many, battles to do something great for the community, right? Big efforts that require a lot of work, a lot of thinking. I've been fortunate over the years to talk to Chris a number of times about ideas he's had, some of which don't go on, but they're such good ideas. He is such a brilliant person at thinking about what will draw a community together. I love it.
Mm-hmm. So we give a nod to Chris, and we give a nod to all our listeners out there who help us by keeping the lights on through our Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/masteringdnd and you can become a supporter. You can be a Master of Dungeon supporter. So we love those folks. You can become a Master of the Realm supporters. They get a shout out in our show notes. Or you can become a Master of the Multiverse. And those folks hear their names every week, including Agile Monk of Fantasy Companion Workshops, Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios, Greg Bailey, Rudy Chainsaw Basso, Dave Bastiensen, Derek the Bearded GM, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Bosjan from Duality Press, Calvin Bridges-Valos, Brobo Ballin, Kevin Criswell, Dead Inertia DM, Evil John, Evan at Nimbleco, Will Doyle, Andy Edmonds at NerdRonomicon.com, James Fisher, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, Ben Heisler and Paige Lightman, Sean Hurst, Hyperlexic, the Jaunty Mantis TTRPG Podcast, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, The Mighty Jerd, JR of the Twilight Perspective, JT Evans, Brian King, Jim Klingler, Gail Cormindy, Chad Lynch, Paul Mata, The Mathemagician, Jaron from Mathis Arcanum, Eric Mengi, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Trey McLemore, Michael, John Mickey, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Tom Nelson, creator of the Deck of Player Safety, DT Norris of DT and Dragons, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Philip and Lindsay, Frog Prince at Tentacle Squelching Wetly, Post Fiction RPG Audio, Ricardo Who Might Adventure, Robert Pasley, Vladimir Prunner from Croatia, Ozymandias Rex, Runner Rick, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Andy Shockney, Krishna Simos, Tim Smith, Spark from Dunner Games, Jeff Stevens at jeffstevensgames.com, Josh and Lee Wanika of the Tabletop Journeys podcast, Talos the Stormlord, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Trace, Ryan Truk, Joe Tyler, Marcelo de Velasquez, the Valiant DM, Vedwaklis G. Also check out photography services from Bergen, Norway, Vin Aku, James Walton, Graham Ward, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Javier Waziak, Waterford Wizard, Chris Webster, Ian Wright, Zach Types, and Z. Walt Winfrey. Thank you so much for your support. If you would like to get your name mangled in real time, again, you can go to patreon.com/masteringdnd. You can also help us out by giving us a review wherever you listen or watch the show, especially going to YouTube and subscribing and giving us all the thumbs and the likes and all of that. We appreciate it. Teos, what have you been up to and where can people find that?
I have been cracking suns. I actually got to write the Patreon post for MCDM, which was very fun at the end of last week. So if you go into the MCDM Patreon and you check that out, you will hear me talking about how the project went. This week, I hope to get something out on skills with that idea of when you have multiple people trying to make a skill check and the impact of that. And I hope to maybe get a blog post out on this whole Lifetime Achievement Award business and thinking about some of the people who've come before me, including one, Sean Merwin.
Never heard of him. But you can find him on the socials at Sean Merwin, or you can follow the podcast at Mastering D&D on all those same socials. So thank you so much out there. Teos, we have learned everything we need to know about the organized play from D&D coming. So what are we going to do now?
Draft an email to Chris Tulach about my new Sex Neopets organized play campaign idea and see whether he'll, talk to somebody about that.
I am going to go vomit.